I was making Sunday dinner when the doorbell rang. My son Jake walked in with his girlfriend Sarah, both looking nervous. I had been waiting months for news about their wedding plans. "Mom," Jake said, sitting on my old couch, "we need to tell you something." Sarah smiled that fake smile she always gave me. "We actually got married last Tuesday at City Hall. It was just for close family and special people." My wooden spoon dropped into the gravy. Special people. I had bought Sarah's engagement ring when Jake couldn't afford it. I paid for their apartment deposit. I even bought groceries every week because they were saving money. But I wasn't special enough for their wedding day. Standing in my kitchen, I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. The wedding dress hanging in my closet upstairs suddenly felt heavy with shame. I had spent $300 on it, imagining myself dancing at my only son's wedding. The shoes I bought to match sat in their box, never to be worn. Sarah kept talking about how small the ceremony was, just immediate family. But I saw the photos later on her social media. Her parents were there. Her brother gave a toast. Her grandmother held the flowers. 23 people at this small wedding, and somehow there wasn't room for the woman who had raised the groom alone for 18 years. I had already called my sister in Boston to tell her about the upcoming wedding. I cleaned my house thinking they might have a small party here afterward. I even looked at catering menus, dreaming of celebrating my son's happiness. All those dreams crashed when Sarah said those 3 poison words, "Special people only." Jake wouldn't look at me. He just stared at his hands while Sarah explained how they wanted something intimate. But I knew better. I had helped pay for that intimate reception at the fancy restaurant downtown. The same restaurant where I couldn't afford to eat, but somehow my credit card could pay for their celebration. Later that night, I looked at the wedding photos on social media. Sarah's white dress, the one I helped buy with the $500 I gave her for wedding expenses. Her father walking her down the aisle, tears in his eyes. Jake in his new suit, looking happier than I had seen him in years. The cake I never got to see. The flowers I never got to smell. The joy I was never allowed to witness. I counted the people in the photos. 23 guests at this intimate ceremony. 23 people more special than the mother who worked 2 jobs to put Jake through college. 23 people who deserved to see him married, while I sat at home eating leftovers and wondering where I went wrong. 7 days after that heartbreak, my phone rang. Sarah's voice sounded different now, worried and shaky. "Betty, we have a problem. The landlord is demanding the rent money today or we're out by Friday. You forgot to send this month's payment." Her tone was demanding, like I was her employee who had messed up. No apology for the wedding. No explanation. Just immediate expectation that I would fix their money problems like I always did. I had been paying their $800 rent for 2 years, plus utilities, plus groceries. I was their personal bank, but apparently not their family. "Sarah," I said slowly, "I thought you told me that help was only for special people." The silence on the phone was so quiet I could hear my neighbor's dog barking outside. For 2 years, I had rushed to the bank every month, making sure their rent was paid before mine. I ate soup and crackers so they could have steak dinners. I wore old clothes so they could buy new ones. I canceled my cable to pay their internet bill. And now, after being told I wasn't special enough for their wedding, they expected me to keep being their safety net. The woman who wasn't good enough to witness their vows was somehow good enough to pay their bills. "Betty, you don't understand," Sarah stammered. "You're like a mother to me. We've always been close." Lies. Sweet lies told in that sugar voice she used when she needed money. The same voice she used to ask me to pay for the honeymoon I would never hear about. The same voice that convinced me to co-sign for their car loan. For 2 years, I walked on eggshells around them, afraid that if I said no to anything, they would disappear from my life. I gave and gave and gave, hoping to earn crumbs of love from my own son. I was the perfect provider, the invisible bank account with legs, the woman who existed only to solve their problems. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a calculator and all my bank statements. I needed to see the real numbers. $800 rent times 24 months was $19,200. Groceries every week for 2 years, about $40 each time, was another $4,000. The engagement ring was $1,200. The car down payment was $3,000. Emergency dental work for Sarah was $800. Christmas gifts, birthday money, gas cards, phone bills. $29,400. That was the exact cost of being taken for granted. $29,000 from my retirement savings, from the small inheritance my mother left me, from the money I had saved working overtime for 30 years. As I stared at those numbers, something inside me cracked open. Not sadness, but anger. Pure, clean anger at myself for being so foolish. I cried that night, but not for them. I cried for all the times I said yes when I should have said no. I cried for the vacations I never took because they needed rent money. I cried for the new car I never bought because they had car trouble. I cried for the woman I had been, who thought love meant paying for everything and asking for nothing in return. I cried for the grandmother I would probably never be, because children who see you as a wallet don't usually want you around their kids. The next morning, I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. Same tired face, same worry lines from years of stress about their problems. But something in my eyes was different. Harder. Clearer. I made coffee and sat at the table where I had written so many checks for their emergencies. Today, this table would witness something new. I took out my checkbook and drew a big red X through it. Then I called my bank and closed the automatic transfer I had set up for their rent. For the first time in 2 years, my money would stay in my account. For the first time in decades, I put myself first. I opened my laptop and started researching. I wanted to understand what had happened to me. The websites called it financial elder abuse. They said it often happens with family members who see older relatives as ATMs instead of people. They talked about love bombing, where people shower you with fake affection to get money, then treat you badly once they have what they want. Reading those articles felt like looking in a mirror. Every pattern, every manipulation tactic, every guilt trip was there in black and white. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't mean. I had been systematically used by people I loved. I printed out every bank statement, every receipt, every record of money I had given them. The pile of papers was 3 inches thick. 3 inches of proof that I had been funding 2 adults who couldn't even pretend to respect me. I made copies of everything and put them in a safe deposit box. If they wanted to play legal games, I would be ready. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I called my friend Martha, who I had lost touch with because I was always too busy helping Jake and Sarah. "Martha," I said when she answered, "I think I need to tell you a story about special people." Martha listened without interrupting as I told her everything. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Betty, I've been waiting 2 years for you to wake up. Every time we talked, you sounded more tired, more stressed, more broke. I watched them drain you dry, and I didn't know how to help you see it." She told me about her own daughter, who had tried the same thing until Martha cut her off financially. "It was the hardest thing I ever did," she said, "but it was also the best. My daughter learned to stand on her own feet, and now we have a real relationship based on love, not money." My phone rang 6 times that day. Jake called 3 times, Sarah called twice, and once from a number I didn't recognize. I let them all go to voicemail. Finally, Jake sent a text. "Mom, please call. We need to work this out." I deleted the message without responding. For the first time in years, their crisis was not my emergency. I went for a walk in the park where I used to take Jake when he was little. I remembered the sweet boy who held my hand and told me I was the best mom in the world. When did that boy become a man who saw me as nothing more than a source of money? When did I start thinking that buying love was the same as earning it? At the bank, I spoke with Mrs. Chun, the manager who had processed all my transfers to Jake and Sarah. She had watched my account shrink month after month for 2 years. Mrs. Rodriguez, she said gently, I've been hoping you would come in to talk about this. Are you sure you want to close the automatic transfers? I nodded. Mrs. Chun, I also want to open a new account that only I can access. And I want information about protecting my finances. Her concern felt more genuine than any interest Jake had shown in my well-being in months. This stranger cared more about my financial safety than my own son did. Walking out of the bank, I felt lighter than I had in years. My money was finally mine again. No more automatic payments to people who couldn't even include me in their important moments. I drove past the apartment complex where they lived, the one I had been paying for. I saw Jake's car in the parking lot and felt nothing. No urge to stop and fix things. No guilt about the unpaid rent. Just a strange sense of freedom. I had spent 2 years making sure they were comfortable while I struggled. Now they could learn what struggle really meant. That evening, I did something I hadn't done since before I started supporting them. I ordered pizza for dinner and watched a movie I wanted to see. Simple pleasures that I had given up to save money for their needs. The pizza tasted better than any meal I had eaten in months. The movie made me laugh until I cried. For 2 hours, I didn't think about rent payments or grocery money or car repairs or any of the endless emergencies that had defined my life with them. I thought about myself, my wants, my happiness. It felt revolutionary. My phone buzzed with another text from Jake. Mom, the landlord served us with an eviction notice. Please don't do this to us. We're family. I stared at the message for a long time. Family. The word felt hollow now. Family doesn't exclude you from weddings. Family doesn't use you as a bank account. Family doesn't threaten you when the money stops flowing. I typed back. You're right, we are family. That's why I raised you to be independent. Time to prove I did a good job. Then I turned off my phone and went to bed early. For the first time in months, I slept through the night without anxiety dreams about their problems. The next morning brought 3 cars in my driveway. Jake, Sarah, and an older man I didn't recognize were standing on my porch. Through the window, I could see they were agitated, talking fast, and pointing at my house. I took a deep breath before opening the door. Mom, Jake said without greeting, we need to talk. This is Mr. Peterson. He's helping us understand our legal options. Legal options. The words hit me like a slap. They weren't here to apologize or explain. They were here with threats. The boy I had raised, who I had sacrificed everything for, was standing on my porch with a lawyer, trying to force me to keep paying for his life. What legal options? I asked, though I already suspected the answer. Mr. Peterson stepped forward with a briefcase and a cold smile. Mrs. Rodriguez, your children are concerned about your recent behavioral changes. Cutting off financial support suddenly, isolating yourself from family, these can be signs of cognitive decline in older adults. The words were carefully chosen to sound clinical and concerning. Sarah jumped in with fake tears. Betty, we love you. We're just worried that someone might be taking advantage of you, making you turn against your own family. The manipulation was so obvious it almost made me laugh. The people who had been taking advantage of me for years were accusing imaginary others of the same crime. I let them into my living room, not because I wanted to hear their threats, but because I wanted to see how far they would go. Mr. Peterson opened his briefcase and pulled out official-looking documents. We've prepared some papers that would allow Jake and Sarah to help manage your finances during this difficult time, he said smoothly. It's just temporary, until we can get you the medical evaluation you need. Medical evaluation. They were trying to have me declared mentally incompetent so they could control my money legally. The woman who wasn't special enough for their wedding was apparently crazy enough to need a guardian. The woman they had ignored for months was suddenly their main concern. And if I refuse? I asked calmly. Sarah's mask slipped for a second, and I saw real anger flash in her eyes. Then we'll have to explore other options, Mr. Peterson replied. Adult children have rights when their parents are making dangerous financial decisions. Dangerous financial decisions. That's what they called me keeping my own money. Jake finally spoke up. Mom, you've changed. You're not acting like yourself. The woman who raised me would never abandon her family like this. The irony was breathtaking. The woman who raised him had taught him to be independent and responsible. The woman who had been enabling him was the stranger, and now that she was gone, he wanted her back. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at my small garden. The flowers I had planted were blooming beautifully because I had finally had time to take care of them. The silence told me everything I needed to know. I turned back to face them. Mr. Peterson, I think you should leave now. And you should know that I've documented every financial transaction, every manipulation attempt, and every threat you've made today. If you want to question my mental capacity, you'll have to explain to a judge why a competent woman managed to support 3 adults for 2 years while maintaining her own household. Mr. Peterson packed his papers quickly. This wasn't going the way they had planned. Sarah tried one more approach. Betty, please. We're going to lose everything. Where will we live? The same place you would have lived if you had never met me, I replied. You're both educated, healthy adults. Figure it out the way millions of other people do. Jake looked at me with wounded eyes that reminded me of the child he used to be. Mom, I can't believe you're doing this to us. After everything we've been through together. I almost weakened then. Almost fell back into the old pattern of guilt and giving. But then I remembered sitting alone on their wedding day while they celebrated with 23 other people. No, Jake, I said firmly. This is something I'm doing for me. For the first time in decades. After they left, I called Martha and told her what had happened. Betty, she said, you need to protect yourself legally. They're not going to give up easily. She gave me the name of a lawyer who specialized in elder abuse cases. When I called him, he wasn't surprised by my story. Mrs. Rodriguez, what they tried today is called financial coercion. The fact that they brought a lawyer to pressure you into signing documents shows this is serious. We need to act fast. I made an appointment for the next day. For the first time since this nightmare started, I felt like I had an ally who understood what was really happening. That night, I couldn't sleep, but not because of worry. Because of excitement. Tomorrow, I would start building legal walls to protect the life I was reclaiming. I thought about all the things I could do with my money now. The cruise I had wanted to take for 10 years. The art classes I had given up because I couldn't afford them. The house repairs I had postponed because their needs always came first. Maybe I would even move to a smaller place closer to downtown where I could walk to theaters and museums and coffee shops. A life focused on my happiness instead of their emergencies. The lawyer, Mr. Williams, was everything Mr. Peterson was not. Kind, straightforward, and genuinely concerned about my welfare rather than my wallet. Mrs. Rodriguez, he said after I told him my story, what your family attempted is a form of financial abuse. It's more common than people think, and it's often successful because the victims feel too guilty or ashamed to fight back. He helped me understand my rights and options. We drew up papers to protect my assets and established clear boundaries about who could access my financial information. For the first time in months, I felt safe. Over the next week, Jake called me 15 times. I answered once, just to tell him that all future communication needed to go through Mr. Williams. Mom, you're making a huge mistake, he said. We're your family. We love you. I almost laughed at how empty those words sounded now. Jake, love isn't something you declare when you need money. It's something you show every day through actions. When did you last show me love that didn't cost me anything? He couldn't answer. The truth was that our relationship had been purely transactional for years, and now that the transactions had stopped, there was nothing left. Sarah tried a different approach, showing up at my workplace with tears and apologies. My co-workers were embarrassed for both of us as she sobbed about how sorry she was, how they had made mistakes, how they wanted to make things right. Betty, please, she begged. We've learned our lesson. We'll get jobs, we'll pay you back, we'll include you in everything from now on. But her promises felt as hollow as campaign speeches. She wasn't sorry for excluding me or using me. She was sorry the money had stopped. The woman who had called me not special was suddenly desperate for my attention now that her rent was due. I looked at Sarah with the clear eyes of someone who had finally stopped pretending. Sarah, I said quietly, if you win the lottery next week, will you call me to share your happiness or just when you need help spending the money? Her face told me everything. She started to say something about how that wasn't fair, but I cut her off. You don't have to answer. We both know the truth. I walked away from her, leaving her crying in the parking lot. It was the last time I would let someone else's manufactured tears manipulate me into ignoring my own needs. 2 weeks after the lawyer incident, I got a call from Martha. She had news that would change everything. Betty, I did some digging through my social media connections. You need to see something. She sent me photos from Sarah's Facebook page, posts that were set to private so I couldn't see them before. Pictures from their wedding day, but not the ones I had already seen. These were from the reception, showing 23 guests having dinner at Romano's, the expensive Italian place downtown. The same restaurant where I had eaten once for my birthday and couldn't afford dessert. But the photos weren't what broke my heart. It was the caption Sarah had written. So blessed to celebrate with our real family. Some people just don't understand what love looks like, but we know who matters. Here's to new beginnings and leaving toxic people behind. Posted on the day after their wedding, while I was still processing the shock of being excluded. She had called me toxic for feeling hurt about missing my son's wedding. The woman I had supported for 2 years had publicly labeled me the problem. She had turned my absence from their wedding into proof of my defects rather than their cruelty. The comments on her post were even worse. Friends and family members I didn't know, all agreeing that some people were just negative and drama-filled. One person wrote, "Good for you for keeping the toxic people away from your special day." Another said, "Family isn't about blood, it's about who shows up for you." The irony was stunning. I had been showing up financially for 2 years, but apparently that didn't count because I had also expected basic courtesy and inclusion. I screenshot every comment, every cruel word, every piece of evidence that this wasn't about love or family. It was about control and money. That night, I printed out all the social media posts and added them to my growing file of documentation. Mr. Williams had told me to keep records of everything, and now I understood why. This wasn't just about hurt feelings or family drama. This was about a calculated campaign to isolate me from my support systems while keeping me financially useful. The public shaming, the private manipulation, the legal threats, it was all part of a pattern designed to make me comply. But I wasn't the same woman who had cried alone on their wedding day. I was stronger now, and I had evidence. Martha came over that weekend with wine and wisdom. "Betty," she said as we sat on my porch, "I want you to know how proud I am of you. 2 months ago, you were a shell of yourself. You looked tired all the time, you never had money for anything fun, and you talked about Jake and Sarah constantly like they were your whole world. Look at you now. You're wearing new clothes. You're smiling. You look like yourself again." She was right. I hadn't realized how much the stress of constantly solving their problems had aged me. Now that I was sleeping well and eating regularly, I felt 10 years younger. "Do you ever regret it?" Martha asked. I thought about it honestly. Did I regret losing the illusion of a close family? Did I regret the loneliness that came with setting boundaries? Did I regret the harsh reality that my son saw me as a wallet rather than a person? No, I said finally. I regret how long it took me to see the truth. I regret the years I wasted trying to buy love from people who were incapable of giving it. But I don't regret choosing myself for once. I don't regret refusing to be treated like an ATM with feelings. The eviction notice had been served, and Jake and Sarah had to move out of the apartment I had been paying for. They found a small place across town, and Sarah got her first job in 3 years as a receptionist at a dental office. Jake picked up weekend shifts at a warehouse. Through mutual friends, I heard that they were struggling but surviving. Part of me felt guilty about their hardship, but a bigger part of me felt proud. They were finally learning skills they should have developed years ago. They were becoming the independent adults I had tried to raise Jake to be. 3 months after cutting off their financial support, I did something I had dreamed about for years. I booked a cruise to Alaska, something I had wanted to do since my husband died 12 years ago. But every time I had saved enough money, Jake or Sarah would have an emergency that drained my travel fund. This time, I paid the full amount up front and didn't tell anyone except Martha. 2 weeks on a ship, seeing glaciers and whales, eating food I didn't have to cook, sleeping in a bed someone else would make. It felt like winning the lottery. The cruise was everything I had imagined and more. I met other women my age who had similar stories. Women who had spent decades putting everyone else's needs first until they finally learned to value themselves. We laughed and shared stories and supported each other. For the first time in years, I was surrounded by people who saw me as a person, not as a resource. Nobody asked me for money or expected me to solve their problems. They liked me for my personality, my humor, my conversation. I remembered what it felt like to be valued for who I was instead of what I could provide. When I came back from the cruise, refreshed and happy, there was a letter waiting for me. It was from Jake, handwritten on notebook paper. The first personal letter he had written me since elementary school. In it, he apologized for the wedding, for taking my money for granted, for bringing a lawyer to threaten me. He said he and Sarah were learning to budget and work together as a team. He said he was proud of me for standing up for myself, even though it had been hard for him to accept. He said he hoped someday we could rebuild our relationship on a foundation of mutual respect instead of financial dependency. I cried when I read that letter, but they were good tears. The tears of a mother who sees her child finally growing up. The tears of a woman who realizes that sometimes love means saying no. Jake didn't ask for money anywhere in that 3-page letter. He didn't make excuses or try to guilt me into changing my mind. He took responsibility for his actions and acknowledged the harm he had caused. It was the first mature communication I had received from him in years. I wrote back, telling him I loved him and was proud of his growth, but that our relationship would have to rebuild slowly and carefully. Sarah never apologized. Through friends, I heard that she blamed me for their financial struggles and still told people I had abandoned them unreasonably. She never acknowledged the wedding exclusion or the years of financial exploitation. Some people are capable of growth and self-reflection, and others are not. I made peace with the fact that Sarah would probably never understand what she had done wrong. My relationship with Jake might be salvageable eventually, but my relationship with Sarah was permanently damaged. And that was okay. Not every relationship is worth preserving. A year later, I ran into Jake at the grocery store. He looked older, more tired, but also more settled somehow. He was buying ingredients for dinner, calculating prices, and using coupons like a responsible adult. We talked for a few minutes about safe topics, the weather, my cruise photos, his new promotion at work. It was awkward but not hostile. When we parted, he said, "Mom, I know we have a long way to go, but I want you to know that cutting us off was the best thing you ever did for me. I just wish I had been smart enough to see it sooner." Those words meant more to me than any apology. As I drove home from the store, I reflected on the year that had changed my life. I had lost the illusion of a close family, but I had gained self-respect. I had lost the role of family ATM, but I had gained financial freedom. I had lost the false peace of enabling others, but I had gained the real peace of setting boundaries. Most importantly, I had learned that love without respect is not love at all. It's manipulation dressed up in pretty words. Real love doesn't come with a price tag or a list of financial obligations. My advice to anyone going through something similar is this: pay attention to patterns, not promises. Look at what people do, not what they say. If someone only contacts you when they need something, that tells you everything you need to know about their priorities. If someone excludes you from important events but expects you to fund their lifestyle, they're using you. If someone threatens legal action when you set boundaries, they're not concerned about your well-being, they're concerned about their cash flow. Trust your instincts, document everything, and don't let anyone guilt you into accepting less than you deserve. The hardest part of setting boundaries with family is overcoming your own conditioning. We're taught from childhood that family comes first, that blood is thicker than water, that we should sacrifice for the people we love. But sacrifice should be mutual and voluntary, not demanded and one-sided. Family should be a source of support and joy, not a drain on your resources and peace of mind. It's okay to love someone from a distance if being close to them is harmful to your well-being. It's okay to protect yourself from people who see you as an opportunity rather than a person. 3 years have passed since that devastating wedding conversation, and my life is completely different now. I have genuine friendships. Jake and I have slowly rebuilt a relationship based on respect rather than financial dependency. He calls me once a month just to talk, never to ask for anything. He sends me pictures of his small apartment, proud of the furniture he bought himself. He and Sarah are still together, and while she and I will never be close, she at least treats me politely now. They've learned to solve their own problems, manage their own money, and stand on their own feet. The crisis that felt like the end of our family actually saved it by forcing everyone to grow up and face reality. Looking back, I can see that the signs were always there. The phone calls that only came when they needed something. The way they avoided spending time with me unless it involved a meal I was paying for. The way Sarah rolled her eyes when I talked about my interests or problems. The way Jake seemed embarrassed by me in public, but comfortable with me in private when no one was watching. They had trained me to accept crumbs of attention in exchange for unlimited financial support. I had mistaken their tolerance for my presence for genuine affection. The wedding exclusion was actually a gift, though it didn't feel like one at the time. It was the shock I needed to wake up from years of denial and enabling. It forced me to confront the reality of how they saw me and how little they valued my presence in their lives. Without that brutal moment of clarity, I might have continued funding their lifestyle while accepting their indifference for years more. Sometimes the most painful truths are also the most liberating ones. I've become an advocate for other older adults who are being financially abused by family members. I volunteer with a local organization that helps seniors recognize the signs of elder abuse and provides resources for getting help. It's more common than most people realize, and it often goes unreported because the victims feel ashamed or guilty about confronting family members. But financial abuse is still abuse, even when it's committed by people who claim to love you. Especially when it's committed by people who claim to love you. My story has a happier ending than many similar situations because I had the resources and support to fight back. Not everyone does. Some seniors are completely isolated from friends and support systems. Some have cognitive issues that make them more vulnerable to manipulation. Some are physically dependent on the same family members who are abusing them financially. That's why it's so important for communities to watch out for older adults and to provide resources for those who need help. Financial abuse thrives in secrecy and isolation. Awareness and support can break that cycle. The most valuable thing I learned from this experience is that it's never too late to change your life. At 73 years old, I completely rebuilt my relationship with myself and my understanding of what I deserve from others. I learned new skills, made new friends, discovered new interests, and created new boundaries. Age doesn't disqualify you from growth, change, or happiness. In fact, the wisdom that comes with experience can make later life changes even more powerful and meaningful. Today, I live in a beautiful senior community where I'm surrounded by people who appreciate me for who I am, not what I can provide. I take watercolor painting classes on Tuesdays, play bridge with friends on Thursdays, and volunteer at the animal shelter on weekends. My calendar is full of activities I choose because they bring me joy, not obligations I accept out of guilt or fear. I have enough money to live comfortably, travel when I want, and help causes that matter to me. Most importantly, I have peace of mind. My relationship with Jake continues to improve slowly. He's learned to budget, save money, and solve problems without calling for help. He and Sarah bought a small house last year using their own savings for the down payment. They seem genuinely happier now that they're not dependent on anyone else. Jake calls me every Sunday just to chat, and twice a year he visits for a weekend. Our conversations are real now. We talk about books, politics, memories, dreams. We don't talk about money at all. It's the relationship I always wanted with him, built on a foundation of mutual respect rather than financial obligation. Sarah and I maintain a polite distance. She sends me birthday cards and includes me in family photos, but we'll never be close. I've made peace with that. Not every relationship can be repaired, and that's okay. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is accept that some people are not capable of the kind of relationship you want with them. You can wish them well from afar without subjecting yourself to their toxic behavior. Boundaries aren't walls, they're gates that you control. The financial abuse I experienced is more common than most people realize, especially among older adults. According to recent studies, family members are responsible for about 90% of elder financial abuse cases. It often starts small: a request to help with rent, a loan that never gets paid back, a gradual increase in financial dependence. Before you know it, you're funding someone else's entire lifestyle while they treat you like an inconvenience. The key is recognizing the patterns early and setting boundaries before you're in too deep. Warning signs include family members who only contact you when they need money, who make you feel guilty for having boundaries, who exclude you from important events while expecting your financial support, who threaten legal action when you say no, or who try to isolate you from friends and other family members. If someone's love for you seems directly proportional to your willingness to give them money, that's not love, that's exploitation. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. If you're currently in a situation like mine was, know that you have options. Start by documenting everything. Keep records of all financial transactions, save texts and emails, take screenshots of social media posts. Open your own bank account that only you can access. Reach out to friends or family members who aren't financially dependent on you. Contact a lawyer who specializes in elder law. Many communities have resources specifically designed to help older adults who are being financially abused. You don't have to face this alone. Most importantly, remember that setting boundaries with family is not selfish. It's necessary for your mental, emotional, and financial well-being. You are not required to fund other people's lifestyles, even if they're related to you. You are not obligated to accept disrespectful treatment just because someone shares your DNA. Family should be a source of love and support, not stress and financial strain. If your family relationships are causing you more pain than joy, it's okay to step back and reassess what you're willing to accept. The guilt was the hardest part for me to overcome. I had been conditioned to believe that good mothers sacrifice everything for their children, that family should always come first, that saying no to family was selfish and cruel. It took therapy and the support of good friends to realize that enabling adult children to remain financially dependent is actually harmful to them, and to me. Real love sometimes means allowing people to face the natural consequences of their choices. Jake is a better person now because I stopped rescuing him from every financial crisis. He's learned skills he never would have developed if I had continued to bail him out. He has self-respect that comes from earning his own way in the world. He has a marriage based on teamwork rather than dependence on outside sources. He has a relationship with me that's based on genuine affection rather than financial obligation. None of that growth would have happened if I had continued to enable his irresponsibility. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no. I want to address something that many people in my situation worry about: being alone. Yes, setting boundaries with exploitative family members might mean spending more time alone, at least initially. But there's a huge difference between being alone and being lonely. I was lonelier when I was surrounded by people who only valued me for my money than I am now when I'm surrounded by people who value me as a person. Quality relationships are always better than quantity. One friend who calls to check on you because they care is worth more than 10 family members who only call when they need something. One conversation where someone listens to your problems is more valuable than 100 interactions where you're only seen as a solution to someone else's problems. When you stop accepting crumbs of attention in exchange for unlimited financial support, you make room in your life for people who offer real friendship and genuine care. Building new relationships in later life is absolutely possible, despite what some people think. I've made more genuine friendships in the past 3 years than I had in the previous decade. When you're not constantly stressed about other people's financial emergencies, when you're not walking on eggshells to avoid conflict with exploitative family members, when you have energy and resources to invest in yourself, you become more attractive to healthy people who want mutual, supportive relationships. I also want to talk about forgiveness because people often ask if I've forgiven Jake and Sarah. Forgiveness doesn't mean pretending that harmful behavior didn't happen or returning to old patterns that enabled abuse. Forgiveness means releasing the anger and resentment that can poison your own life. I've forgiven Jake because he acknowledged his mistakes, took responsibility for his actions, and changed his behavior. I've forgiven Sarah in the sense that I don't wish her harm, but I also don't trust her or want a relationship with her. Forgiveness is for your own peace of mind, not for the benefit of people who hurt you. Some people think that cutting off financial support for adult children is harsh or unloving. But consider this. If your adult child broke their leg, would you carry them everywhere for the rest of their life? Or would you encourage them to do the physical therapy necessary to walk again? Financial dependence is like a broken leg that never heals because the person never learns to walk on their own. Continuing to carry them doesn't help. It disables them further. Real love sometimes means allowing people to struggle so they can grow stronger. The transformation in my own life has been remarkable. I sleep better, eat better, and have more energy than I've had in years. I'm not constantly anxious about someone else's problems or guilty about not doing enough to help. I have hobbies and interests that I pursue for my own enjoyment. I spend time with people who make me laugh and who are genuinely interested in my thoughts and experiences. I travel, read, garden, and volunteer because these activities bring me joy, not because I'm trying to earn someone's love or approval. My finances are in excellent shape now that I'm not supporting 2 additional adults. I've been able to rebuild my retirement savings, invest in my own future, and even set aside money for causes that matter to me. I donate to organizations that help other seniors avoid financial abuse, that provide resources for people trying to escape exploitative relationships, and that support older adults who want to build new lives after difficult transitions. Using my money to help strangers who appreciate it feels much better than using it to support family members who took it for granted. The legal threats that Jake and Sarah made never materialized into actual court cases. Most lawyers won't take cases like theirs because they're expensive to pursue and difficult to win when the older adult is clearly competent and has good legal representation. The threats were just another manipulation tactic designed to scare me back into compliance. If someone threatens to have you declared mentally incompetent for making rational financial decisions, that tells you everything you need to know about their motivations and character. I keep all my legal documentation in a safe place, including records of every financial transaction, every manipulative conversation, and every threat that was made. Not because I expect more legal trouble, but because having that evidence gives me confidence and peace of mind. If anyone ever questions my decisions or my mental capacity, I have 3 inches of documentation proving that I was being systematically exploited and that cutting off financial support was the rational, healthy choice. Looking ahead, I'm excited about the future in a way I haven't been for years. I'm planning a trip to Europe next spring with a group from my community. I'm taking a creative writing class to explore telling my story in different ways. I'm considering getting a small dog for companionship. I'm thinking about volunteering as a mentor for other women who are trying to rebuild their lives after difficult family situations. All of these possibilities exist because I chose to value myself enough to stop accepting unacceptable treatment from people who claimed to love me. My advice for anyone facing a similar situation is this: you are worthy of respect, kindness, and genuine love regardless of your age or your financial resources. You do not exist to fund other people's dreams at the expense of your own security and happiness. You have the right to enjoy the money you worked hard to earn and save. You have the right to spend your time with people who value your presence, not just your presence. You have the right to say no to requests that make you uncomfortable, even if those requests come from family members. If someone in your life only contacts you when they need something, consistently excludes you from important events while expecting your financial support, makes you feel guilty for having boundaries, or threatens legal action when you assert your rights, these are not loving behaviors. These are controlling, manipulative tactics used by people who see you as a resource rather than a person. You deserve better, and it's never too late to demand better treatment or remove yourself from situations that harm your well-being. The hardest part of this journey was overcoming my own conditioning about what it means to be a good mother, a good family member, a good person. I had to learn that enabling irresponsible behavior is not the same as showing love. I had to understand that setting boundaries is not the same as being mean or selfish. I had to accept that some relationships are not worth preserving if they require you to sacrifice your own well-being. These were difficult lessons that challenged everything I thought I knew about family and love, but they were necessary for my survival and happiness. I'm sharing my story not for sympathy or attention, but because I know there are other people out there who are living the nightmare I escaped. Maybe you're reading this while wondering if your own family situation is normal. Maybe you're questioning whether you're being too generous or not generous enough. Maybe you're feeling guilty for wanting to set boundaries with people who take advantage of your kindness. I want you to know that your instincts are probably right, that you deserve to be treated with respect and appreciation, and that it's possible to rebuild your life even if it means disappointing people who have been exploiting you. The woman I am today is stronger, happier, and more authentic than the woman I was 3 years ago. I have real friendships, genuine interests, financial security, and peace of mind. I sleep well at night, knowing that my relationships are based on mutual care and respect rather than financial obligation and manipulation. I wake up each morning excited about my own plans rather than anxious about someone else's problems. This is what life is supposed to feel like, and it's available to anyone who has the courage to choose themselves over people who don't truly value them. Jake and I are building something new together, slowly and carefully. Our relationship now is healthier than it ever was when I was funding his lifestyle because it's based on genuine connection rather than financial dependence. He respects me more now that I've shown I won't accept disrespectful treatment. He values our conversations more because he knows I'm choosing to spend time with him, not obligated to rescue him from his latest crisis. He's proud of his own accomplishments because he earned them through his own efforts rather than through my checkbook. This is what real family relationships should look like. Sarah represents a different outcome, and that's okay too. Some people are not capable of growth, self-reflection, or genuine change. Some people will always see others as resources to be exploited rather than individuals to be valued. I can't control Sarah's choices or force her to become a better person, but I can control how much access she has to my life and my resources. Maintaining polite distance from toxic people is sometimes the best you can do, and that's enough. The support I've received from other women who have faced similar situations has been invaluable. There's something powerful about connecting with people who understand your experience without judgment or explanation. We share strategies for dealing with guilt, celebrate victories over manipulation, and remind each other that we deserve to be treated well. If you're facing financial abuse from family members, I encourage you to seek out support groups, online communities, or counseling resources specifically designed for people in your situation. You don't have to navigate this alone. Financial independence in later life is not just about having enough money. It's about having the freedom to make choices based on your own values and desires rather than other people's demands and expectations. When you're not constantly worried about funding someone else's lifestyle, when you're not walking on eggshells to avoid conflict with people who exploit your generosity, you can focus on what truly matters to you. You can pursue interests, build relationships, and create experiences that bring genuine fulfillment rather than just temporary peace. I want to acknowledge that not everyone in my situation has the resources or support system that I had. Some people are more isolated, more financially vulnerable, or more physically dependent on the same family members who are abusing them. If that's your situation, please know that there are organizations and resources specifically designed to help you. Contact your local area agency on aging, call the National Elder Abuse Hotline, or speak with a social worker at your doctor's office. Help is available, even if it doesn't feel that way right now. The guilt and self-doubt were the hardest parts of this process for me. I constantly questioned whether I was being too harsh, too selfish, too unforgiving. I wondered if I was destroying my family over money, if I was punishing Jake for mistakes that Sarah had influenced him to make, if I was missing opportunities for reconciliation. It took time and therapy to understand that protecting yourself from exploitation is not selfish, it's necessary. Taking care of your own needs is not cruel, it's healthy. Refusing to enable harmful behavior is not punishment, it's love in its truest form. The transformation in Jake has been remarkable to witness. When he was financially dependent on me, he was anxious, irresponsible, and resentful. He seemed to hate needing my help, but was unwilling to do what it took to become independent. Now that he's supporting himself, he's more confident, more mature, and more respectful. He takes pride in his accomplishments because they're truly his own. He makes better decisions because he has to live with the consequences. He values relationships more because he's not focused solely on what he can get from other people. This experience taught me that money is a tool, not a weapon or a substitute for love. I had been using money to try to buy affection, security, and peace of mind, but those things can't be purchased. Real affection is given freely, without expectation of payment. Real security comes from knowing you can take care of yourself. Real peace of mind comes from living according to your values rather than other people's demands. I also learned that age is not a disqualifier for major life changes. At 73, I completely rebuilt my understanding of family, relationships, and self-worth. I developed new skills for recognizing and resisting manipulation. I created new boundaries and learned to enforce them consistently. I built new friendships and discovered new interests. I proved to myself that it's never too late to choose a better life, even if it means disappointing people who have been taking advantage of your kindness for years. The social media aspect of this story was particularly painful, but also illuminating. Seeing Sarah's posts about keeping toxic people away from their wedding while simultaneously expecting me to fund their lifestyle showed me the depth of her manipulation and self-deception. People who truly love you don't publicly shame you while privately exploiting you. People who value you don't celebrate your absence while demanding your presence when they need financial help. Social media often reveals people's true feelings more clearly than their direct communication does. I encourage anyone dealing with similar situations to screenshot and save evidence of manipulative behavior, especially on social media. Keep records of all financial transactions, save text messages and emails, document conversations where threats or manipulation occurred. This evidence might be crucial if legal action becomes necessary, but more importantly, having concrete proof of the patterns of abuse can help you maintain clarity when manipulative people try to gaslight you or make you question your own perceptions. The legal threats that Jake and Sarah made were designed to intimidate me back into compliance, but they actually strengthened my resolve. When someone threatens to have you declared mentally incompetent for making rational decisions about your own money, they've shown you exactly who they are and what you mean to them. They're not concerned about your well-being, they're concerned about their access to your resources. That kind of threat removes any doubt about whether you're dealing with people who truly care about you. Recovery from financial abuse is a process, not an event. Even now, 3 years later, I sometimes have moments of doubt or guilt. I wonder if I could have handled things differently, if there might have been a way to maintain the relationship while still protecting myself. But then I remember how I felt during those 2 years of constant stress, anxiety, and financial strain. I remember the humiliation of being excluded from their wedding after funding their lives. I remember the legal threats and manipulation attempts. Those memories remind me that I made the right choice. The community I found in my senior living facility has been a revelation. I'm surrounded by people who have interesting stories, diverse experiences, and genuine care for one another. We support each other through health challenges, celebrate each other's successes, and enjoy each other's company without any underlying financial agendas. This is what healthy relationships look like: reciprocal, respectful, and based on genuine affection rather than obligation or need. I want to end with a message of hope for anyone who is currently trapped in a similar situation. You are stronger than you think. You are more valuable than your bank account. You deserve to be treated with respect and appreciation. You have the right to enjoy the fruits of your own labor and planning. You do not exist solely to solve other people's problems or fund their dreams at the expense of your own security and happiness. Change is possible, no matter how long the unhealthy patterns have been in place. It will be difficult. There will be guilt, doubt, and loneliness along the way. There will be people who try to convince you that you're being selfish or cruel. There will be moments when you question whether you're doing the right thing. But on the other side of that difficulty is a life of authenticity, respect, and genuine peace. On the other side is the freedom to make choices based on your own values rather than other people's manipulations. On the other side is the possibility of real relationships built on mutual care rather than financial obligation. My name is Betty Rodriguez. I am 76 years old, and I learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable harmful behavior, even when that behavior comes from people you love deeply. I learned that setting boundaries is not selfish, it's essential for healthy relationships. I learned that it's never too late to choose yourself, to demand better treatment, and to build a life that reflects your values rather than other people's expectations. If my story resonates with you, if you see patterns in your own life that concern you, please know that help and support are available. You don't have to accept exploitation just because it comes from family members. You don't have to fund other people's irresponsibility to prove your love. You don't have to sacrifice your own well-being to keep others comfortable. You matter. Your needs matter. Your happiness matters. And it's never too late to start acting like they do. 3 years ago, I was a broken woman funding other people's lives while neglecting my own needs and dreams. Today, I am a confident, independent person surrounded by genuine relationships and pursuing interests that bring me joy. The transformation didn't happen overnight, and it wasn't easy, but it was absolutely worth every difficult moment. If you're facing a similar situation, I encourage you to take the first small step toward protecting yourself. You deserve so much better than you're currently accepting. For more stories like mine, stories of people who found the courage to change their lives and demand better treatment, please subscribe to Her Voice Unfolds. Share this video with anyone who might need to hear this message. Leave a comment telling me where you heard this story and what it meant to you. Your support helps me continue sharing these important stories that might help someone else find their way out of an exploitative situation and into a life of dignity and respect. Thank you for listening to my story with an open heart and mind. Thank you for caring about the experiences of people who have been taken advantage of by those they loved most. Thank you for understanding that family relationships should be sources of joy and support, not stress and exploitation. Most importantly, thank you for believing that everyone deserves to be treated with respect and appreciation, regardless of their age or their willingness to provide financial support to others. Until next time, remember that your voice matters, your story matters, and your well-being matters more than anyone else's comfort or convenience. This is Betty, signing off from Her Voice Unfolds.